Hello, everyone. Dee Mitchell here, and I would like to talk to you today about making connections. When we read, we will often find that um, the text reminds us of some things that have happened in our own lives. It could remind us of a place that we've gone to, someone that we've met, a feeling that we had, something we've tasted or heard. A text can remind us of many different things. And so when this happens, we begin to make connections. And a connection is just simply how things are related or intertwined in a way that make us remember. And that's something we definitely want to do as readers. We want to remember the texts that we are reading. And so there are three ways that you can connect to a text. Um, the first is text to self. And this is when a text reminds you again of something that has happened, an experience, something that you've gone through. It could be something pleasant, something unpleasant. And when you're reading that text, it brings back all of these memories of, again, where you might have been, who was with you, the feelings that you were having. And so it really begins to help you to connect to that text. The next way we can connect to a text is text to text. Often we will read a text and it reminds us of something we've already read. For example, you could be reading a text on your favorite topic. Let's say you are really into animals. You could read lots of different texts about animals. And from each text, you could learn something new, or you could begin to compare the information that you're getting from these different texts. And lastly, there is the text to world connection. And so this is when a text that you are reading reminds you of something that happened or is happening in your community or the world at large. And so there are lots of things, if you've been listening to the news, lots of things happening in our world, in our government, in our environment. And so again, sometimes text that we're reading reminds us of these things that we are experiencing, these issues that we are having. And it could be something that is not all over the world, but something just right there in your community. And so these are things that we need to do as readers. We need to practice seeing how we can make these types of connections. And oftentimes we do it without even knowing. For example, we read Dreams Around the World. And what you probably did while we were reading Dreams Around the World was to think about your own dreams and aspirations and your own hopes as you read about how these different children around the world had dreams and hopes for their future. So that's an example of a text to self connection. Okay. And so as we get into our text for today, Poems in the Attic, we're going to practice making connections. Poems in the Attic. Grandma's attic is stacked with secrets. Last visit, I found poems Mama wrote before I was born, before I was even imagined. She started when she was 7, same age as me. So I'm going to stop here because right away, boys and girls, I am able to make a text to self connection. I remember going to my grandmother's house and going through her things. She had lots of little pretty boxes and cabinets where she had hidden away things. I remember especially going through albums, picture albums, where I saw my aunts and uncles and my mother um, as children. They were young, just like me, and it was a really fascinating experience to see these grown-ups in my lives as children. And so this is reminding me of that experience, those experiences that I had. So as you read on, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to read, I want you to stop and I want you to ask yourself some questions. Does this text remind me of anything, an experience that I've had? Does this text remind me of another text that I've read? Or does this text remind me of something that has happened or is happening um, in my world? Okay, because that helps us to make connections to the text. That helps us to understand it. It helps us to remember. It becomes a part of who we are. And that is something that all good readers do. They don't just read for the sake of reading, but they want to really understand and carry that information, carry that story with them for the rest of their lives. Happy reading, boys and girls.